Just like there is a Sherlock Holmes fandom, there is a whole universe of his incarnations on screen. How can we even look through all those stunning actors and objectively rank their performances? Well, I can promise you it will be subjective and will certainly miss some of the portrayals, and you will curse me for this. Yet you'll still get a pretty good idea of how Sherlock Holmes' likeness evolved in movies and TV series for over a century. The character of the most famous British detective was invented by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle back in the late 1880s. Yes, I said invented, although there is a popular belief that he must have existed in reality. Even my recent poll in this channel's community proved this bias. Watch the previous video on my channel to learn more about the real-life protagonists of Holmes. No wonder that such popularity that almost brought the fictional character to life also brought up additional challenges to the actors who would portray Sherlock on screens.
You keep out of my stomach with your deductions, Mr. Holmes. Don't like it. Must have a little privacy.
Overall, there were 75 actors playing the part in over 250 productions. The character of Sherlock even holds the Guinness World Record for the most portrayed literally human character in film and television history.
However did you guess, Mr. Holmes?
Miss Smith, I never guess.
One last caveat, the video is going to focus on English-speaking portrayals of Sherlock. Obviously, there were other notable and extremely interesting takes on the character in other languages. Let me know if you would be interested to see such a selection.
Dear fellow, how are you, Holmes? I'm delighted to see you. Perfectly delighted, upon my word I am, but...
The earliest actor to assume the role was American William Gillette. By the way, he was also a founding member of the New York Holmes Society, still known as the Baker Street Irregulars. Gillette was a stage actor, yet his take is extremely important in the overall sequence of future portrayals, since he apparently added several crucial details to the character that were not invented by Doyle, yet were the liberal interpretations of his own. For example, it is thought that he was the originator of this "elementary, my dear Watson" phrase.
Elementary, my dear fellow, elementary.
Like really, one of the most quoted and iconic aspects of Sherlock's character has not been plotted by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Well, Holmes often calls his observations elementary and sometimes refers to his companion as "my dear Watson", yet the phrase "elementary, my dear Watson" is never uttered in any of the 60 stories by Doyle. Moreover, Gillette also influenced this detective look we immediately think of upon hearing his name today, like Sherlock's emblematic curved calabash pipe is not original to Conan Doyle's writings, yet was introduced by William Gillette. This curved design was thought to have been fit for the actor's jaw during a long performance, so he could pronounce his lines more easily. Gillette also used the deerstalker hat, which was also unspecified in Doyle's narration, yet first appeared in some Strand illustrations by Sidney Paget. All in all, he was widely praised for his performance. Contemporaries described his acting as unemotional, dry and crisp, the traits that perfectly conveyed the presence of the famous detective. It looks like the writer quite liked his acting. On one occasion, after they have exchanged numerous telegrams about the play, Gillette telegraphed Doyle, "May I marry Holmes?" Doyle responded, "You may marry him, murder him, or do whatever you like with him."
Do you remember that you asked me a question just now? Well, this is the answer. I do care for you, I do.
In fact, in 1916 he also appeared in a silent film made out of the late 19th century stage play. The movie was thought to be lost until in 2014 they announced that a copy had been discovered in film archive in France.
Watson, my dear fellow, to change the subject a trifle.
For 2 years, from 1921 to 1923, another 47 silent black and white films were released by the British Stoll Pictures, featuring an English actor, Eille Norwood. These were mostly adaptations of original stories lasting about 20 minutes each. Until recent years, Norwood was the one who had played Holmes more times than any other actor in film or TV. His acting was also witnessed and appreciated by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who once reportedly said, "His wonderful impersonation of Holmes has amazed me." Well, must have been really huge to hear such words of admiration from the author himself. The public loved his work both on screen and on stage. Mr. Norwood not merely played Sherlock Holmes, he was Sherlock Holmes. Every trick, every mannerism of the immortal sleuth was there, so real, so natural that one wondered whether in private life the actor had a personality of his own. It was a great performance, as one reviewer said.
Sherlock Holmes, Esquire.
What is it?
In English, Clive Brook was another notable actor to take on the role of Holmes in the first spoken cinema film. Remember, I mentioned the elementary "My dear Watson" phrase that was compiled by Gillette? Well, it is believed that Brook was the one to actually say that in the movie.
Incredible, my dear Holmes, amazing.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary.
The first of the 3 episodes with Brook, The Return of Sherlock Holmes, was released by Paramount Pictures in 1929. As I've said, it was the first sound film to feature Sherlock Holmes. Curiously, they also produced a silent version of the picture to accommodate theaters that did not feature sound at that time. Ironically, the original voices were lost in the course of history.
Holmes, where on earth have you been? I've been trying to get you at the club, at Scotland Yard, all over London.
You were looking for me in the wrong places.
A South African-born English actor, Basil Rathbone, put on the deerstalker cap of Sherlock in 14 US films in 1939 and the early 1940s. His looks and acting were much in line with the notable works of his illustrious predecessors. Yet there was some rather daring novelty that would be heavily used in the screen adaptations in the 21st century. While the first 2 episodes produced by 20th Century Fox were traditional period pieces, the next 10 Universal Pictures films abandoned Victorian Britain and moved to the contemporary setting of the Second World War, in which Holmes occasionally battles Nazis. Amazing, right? It looks like the liberal screenplay with Benedict Cumberbatch. We'll get to him soon. Suddenly, isn't that groundbreaking, huh? Although when it comes to Universal Pictures from the 1940s, they apparently went for such alterations due to the restricted budget, which wouldn't allow large spending on period decorations. Just like many actors from the Sherlock Holmes canon, Rathbone became largely associated with his celebrated character and was unable to become free from his shadow, despite appearing in other film roles. A blessing and a curse at the same time, right?
And now I have a most regrettable task to perform.
Rathbone himself noted that his first picture was, as it were, a negative, from which I merely continued to produce endless positives of the same photograph. Yet the public and critics still loved him.
My mind rebels at stagnation. Give me problems. Give me work.
Jumping for 4 decades, and here we see a hilarious Jeremy Brett, who played the role of Sherlock for 10 years from 1984 to 1994. All in all, this English actor appeared in 41 episodes, although he also wasn't happy about becoming a typecast. Eventually this happened, and despite a long and fruitful career in cinema and on stage, Brett is commonly remembered as an iconic Sherlock Holmes. At least the actor didn't have to experience the downsides of such fame for long. He sadly died a year after they completed the production.
Your conversation really is most entertaining. If you would close the door on your way out.
Holmes is the hardest part I have ever played, harder than Hamlet or Macbeth. Brad surely embraced this acting challenge and no doubt succeeded in delivering the character of the great detective. Just like William Gillette for the early 20th century and then Basil Rathbone for the 1940s, Brad became the definitive Sherlock Holmes for his epoch. Amusingly, before playing Sherlock, he was engaged as Dr. Watson in the 1980 Los Angeles production of The Crucifer on Blood. This coincidence made him one of only a small number of professional actors to play both Holmes and Watson in their careers. This little detail reminded me of the great English actors John Hickson, who, before becoming Miss Marple, appeared on stage and on screens in supporting roles in different Agatha Christie mysteries. You may learn more about it in this video about Miss Marple actresses.
You mentioned your name just now as if I should recognize it, but I can assure you, beyond the obvious facts, that you are a bachelor, a solicitor, and a Freemason, and an asthmatic. I know nothing about you whatever.
When Jeremy Brett accepted the offer of Granada Television, he set the bar as high as possible. He wanted to be the best Sherlock Holmes the world has ever seen. Just like David Suchet with his study of the character of Poirot. Yes, you may learn about it in this video here. Brett conducted extensive research on Holmes and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself, and was very attentive to discrepancies between the scripts he had been given and Doyle's original stories. Just like Suchet, he had his 77-page Baker Street file on everything from Holmes' mannerisms to his eating and drinking habits. He studied the nuances during the lunch breaks, on the weekends, and on his holidays.
But I abhor the dull routine of existence. I crave mental exaltation.
Brad was really fascinated by the figure of Sherlock Holmes with his manias and obsessions. People say that the actor's character resembled Holmes' portrait, with those waves of energetic passion followed by lethargic silence. They say that Brad even started dreaming about Holmes, and his dreams turned into nightmares. To somehow distance him from the fictional image, Brad began to refer to Holmes as you-know-who.
That is why I've chosen my own profession, or rather, created it. For I am the only one in the world.
Well, although it took much from the actor's mental efforts, the result turned out to be spectacular. Would you agree?
Would you please join me in the call of fire? 1, 2, 3. Fire!
Fire!
We can do better than that.
Another milestone, in my opinion, would be Sherlock's incarnation by an American Robert Downey Jr. alongside Jude Law as Dr. Watson. Together they returned in the 2011 sequel, Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, and the third film is expected to be released in the near future. Yet it was postponed many times for all these years, so who knows if it ever sees the light.
I agree, it's not my best disguise, but let's make do.
My God.
The directorship of Guy Ritchie somewhat hints that the films were not going to be some traditional Victorian Sherlock stories. They certainly didn't. The plot unfolds in the late 19th century London, yet the screenplay is full of action, motion, and special effects that deliver the pace of the 21st century. Well, the Hollywood version of it. It was a real digression from the canon, and I can't say that I became a real fan of the movie itself. Finally, it somehow reminded me of the Pirates of the Caribbean. Yet the acting of Downey was convincing, and I believed his Sherlock. And yeah, Law's Watson was also a great match.
All mine.
turns out that I was not alone in that feeling. The picture set several box office records in the United States for a Christmas Day release and earned Downey his second Golden Globe Award. The second film followed this action mystery path, and although some criticized this modern approach to the old-time classics, I guess that's again the acting of Downey that made it quite convincing. Just like Jeremy Brett, he also had experienced that sort of bipolar personality, with episodes of hyperactivity followed by the inevitable fallouts.
There's nothing of interest for me out there on Earth at all.
Now there was the crowd favorite, Benedict Cumberbatch, the Sherlock for new generation of viewers, I suppose.
Ignore all of that, it's just the shock talking.
Where are you going?
I just need to talk about the rent.
I've still got questions
what
for you.
now? I'm in shock. Look, I've got a blanket.
Sherlock?
I tell you the truth, for many years I resisted and didn't watch a single episode. He wasn't the Sherlock I was rather conservatively thinking of, particularly in terms of look, particularly in terms of present-day setting. What a fool I was, mamma mia! He's great fit for this type of personality, and this time transfer into the present day made it even more enticing.
Is that it?
Is that what?
We only just met, and we're gonna go look at a flat.
Problem?
Like, really, what's the point in trying to repeat the already iconic portrayals of the past? Why not try to develop some new depths and dimensions of the evergreen character? And what would you say? How did you find Benedict's work?
Oh, I may be on the side of the angels, but don't think for 1 second that I am one of them.
At the same time as BBC's Sherlock, Jonny Lee Miller portrayed the consulting detective in the American CBS series Elementary. It was Miller who stripped Eille Norwood of the title of the actor who had played Holmes more times than anyone else in film or TV, with his 154 episodes. I haven't watched it yet, so here I have to rely on your opinion. Did you enjoy it?
Oh, hey. I'm assuming the evening went well, or you wouldn't have ended it with a goodnight kiss.
There is a female Dr. Watson there, they say, and they moved to Manhattan. Well, I'll try to watch it if you say it's worth it. Meanwhile, I shall put him off the list in this video.
Is it, sir? Is it?
Take it. I have others.
Take it, I can't. I can, but I can't. Perhaps I can.
And last but not least, a cherry on top of this long video is the recent take on the role by the British Henry Cavill. In an unusual plot twist, he plays Sherlock in a supporting role behind his fictional sister Enola. Haven't you seen these movies on Netflix? Well, he is very convincing and lovely as the detective elder brother. Since this is not the proper full-sized role for the canon, I shall also put it off the table for the sake of this rating.
The famous fiddle.
That I do not have two of.
And right, here we go. Who was the best Sherlock out there on screens? You know what? All of them are so different and yet so in line with the demands of their time. So it's really hard to put them on the same scale. Okay, let's make it like that. The special mention goes to William Gillette. He was the first and set the bar high. Almost each and every of his followers has borrowed something from him. The bronze and silver medal will be shared between Robert Downey Jr. and Benedict Cumberbatch. My emotional side picks Downey. Bronze medal it be. And the stunning acting nuances by Cumberbatch brought him silver. And yes, the gold medal goes to Jeremy Brett. 30 years has passed and his charisma still mesmerizes me even without those fancy special effects. And what would be your choice? Hope to meet you in the comments. Bye!